Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust Television, and now it's time for us to look at some selected national dailies and see some of the stories that made it to the front of the national dailies. And it's tradition on Daybreak, we start with Daily Trust newspaper actually. And the lead story this morning is on insecurity, and it says food production declines as commercial farms close. The riders are, we are seriously affected. That's coming from Farmers Union. Production cost also a factor, and agro rangers will soon be deployed. The federal government making that bold statement there. Page 4 has details of the story. Above the lead head, lead story this morning, we have Emirates return to Nigeria after 25 months. Page 23 has details. OIC First Lady collaborate to fight cancer. Page 38 has that story. Then the NEF endorsed a tinubu on expectations and not principle. Masari, page 13 has details of that, and where we have a pictorial of low-key activity at a farm in North Central. Very appalling there, but you can read about it. Page 4 has details of that. And then Kano Mosque arson, death toll hits 10. Very unfortunate. Page 3 has details. And then 8 opposition parties meet in Kaduna, strategize ahead of 2027. Page 34 has details of that story. And then Ganduji's alleged corruption case transferred to another court. What court they're talking about? Page 8 has answer to that. And then man remanded for stealing dawa in Kano. Okay, locust beans, the other locust beans, you know. The Yoruba people could call it Iru. Page 20 has details of that story. And that's all the stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
And we now go to The Guardian. The lead story there says legacy of waste. Abandoned projects dot Southwest amid push of scarce resources to new ones. We'll see a picture there of various high-rise buildings that seem to be abandoned or uncompleted, scattered across, of course, the Southwest. Other stories on the front page state Senate stalls debate against implementation of new electricity tariff. That story is on page 6. Also, Ondo polls stop abuse by governors. INEC tells security agencies. Beside that, we see finally students' loan application portal opens on May 24. And above that, NLC, TUC boycott negotiations as FG promises to shift ground. Beside that, rising cost of drugs worsened steep rise in hypertension cases. And of course, this is on the heels of the World Hypertension Day today. And below that, family laments death of 41-year-old mother of 6 in Enugu crossfire. Catch that story on the Metro page of The Guardian. And finally, terrorism. Nigeria needs partnership, not handouts. Federal government tells the U.S. That story is on page 7, and that wraps up stories across the front page of The Guardian.
All right, we'll take one more and we'll begin the analysis in the program this morning. Let's start with, let's end with the Nation newspaper this morning. And the lead story says your hard-earned pension saves. Federal government assures Nigerians. I said there are enough safeguard and protections for saving. All right, you might just want to read that. It started on the front page, and then page 2 has details, more details. And above that, we have 36 speakers back state police plan, give assemblies autonomy. Page 4 has details of that story. And then NEC pledges better support for small businesses. Page 4 still. And then no hiding place for fruit stars. EFCC vows. Page 28 has details. And then APC caucuses. Mutwang, speaker of coercing plateau lawmakers. All right, you might just want to read that interesting piece there. Page 23 has details. And then we have a pictorial of the youngest president in Africa, and Tinubu, of course, shaking hands. You might just want to know what they discussed. Then payment of $1.3 billion and the 1.3 trillion naira power sector debt will attract investors. All right, says AFDB. President Oke's action, and then gas suppliers to be paid 130 billion naira. That story started on front page. Continue reading for more details on page 2. And then man told he's not British after 42 years in the UK. Interesting. You might just want to read this. It started on front page and the story continues on page 3. And then African first ladies to intensify anti-cancer battle. All right, so they had a dinner yesterday and you might just want to get details of how they are intensifying the anti-cancer battle. Page 3 has details. And the last story says student loan portal opens May 24. Okay, and then we have kidnapped suspect Evans opts for plea bargain. All right, you might just want to know which student loan portal opens May 24. Get all of that story on page 5 in the Nation newspaper this morning. And that brings us to, talking about those stories that made it to the front page. And we have our newspaper reviewer in the studio, Malam Nasser, of the okay. And so you was trying to say something.
Maria, where's your mind? First of all, don't get his name wrong. It's Malam Nuruddin. No, Malam Nuruddin. I actually was thinking of something else. All right, so Malam Nuruddin Abdullah is here. Is editor at 21st Chronicle, and he's here to review the newspapers this morning. Of course, I would have to ask him. Well, your government is saying that they would pay you 48,000 naira as minimum wage. It's good. It's a good thing you're not a civil servant, but you work in the organized private sector.
And it rubs off on him as well.
Exactly.
Yes. And the labor is demanding what?
615,000.
Apparently, they are not realistic.
So on both ends.
Yes, because so many things need to be factored before a figure is arrived. And is it the DG of National Productivity Center has said something which is very vital, particularly in this. I hope they are part of the discussion, the tripartite committee between TUC, NLC, and the FG. Nobody is talking about productivity. Here you do KPI. How many civil servants do you, particularly those in the core ministries, the MDS, for instance? Maybe if you remove some, what they call, grade A agencies, CBN, PENCOMA, what if you, or revenue generating agencies, do you know what KPI means? But go to a typical minister as KPI, the civil servants don't know. There used to be effort in the past to even clocking in and clocking out. Some billions were channels into those facilities, but I don't think there is any typical minister. I'm not talking about the CBN, NDIC, FRS, and what have you. None is working. So nobody's talking about productivity. NLC, TUC are just talking about the numbers. Like the government has now been reduced as a charity organization. I'm not supporting the federal government.
You see now, Nuruddin, you're talking like you're tilting towards the area of, because you're speaking so much about productivity, which means that if we're going to implement true and actual productivity in these ministries, it would mean that a lot of civil servants will lose their jobs.
One, for you to increase salary, for the government to actually pay what they call living wage, you have to do away with large percentage of what you have now. Look at the recruitment process. You just give people jobs because they are staying idle. No schedule of duty, no KPI, no nothing. The other side of it is we have a 30 trillion budget. How much of this is going for recurrent? I'm talking about the salaries, overhead allowances, and even debt servicing. The actual capital vote is not up to 5 trillion. When you removed debt servicing and what have you, the actual actual thing that's going to capital project. It's not up to more than 5 trillion. The whole thing is going for civil servants allowances. Go to a typical civil service ministry. They're talking about areas. They're talking about salary increment. That's it. You can't continue like this. It seems that if you are, even to implement this, you have to be borrowing, to be paying salary, to be paying people salary whose productivity cannot even be measured.
So, you're an advocate of a full implementation of the Oronsayin report?
Definitely. But unfortunately, even the President Tinubu's administration, is full of contradictions. In this newspaper alone, there are 2 stories. One, the House of Reps has passed a bill for the creation of Northwest Development Commission.
The Senate.
For heaven's sake. The Senate, pardon me please, and the President himself has sent a bill to the House of Reps seeking for the creation of anti-doping agency. Do you need a full-blown agency to tackle doping, whatever that means?
Ahead of the Olympics.
Do you need a full-blown ministry?
So if the department in, say, the Ministry of Health could have handled that.
Just some few workers. But look at the contradiction. You created Hyperdeck. NDDC is one of the most corrupt. What I'm talking about, there are so many corrupt agencies out there, but the one that is known since the Hyperdeck days is the NDDC. Was it not that man that, off the mic, he was asked, they spent billions during COVID, and what have you, when he was asked, he slumped. You remember that drama? You created Hyperdeck. Now you are creating Northwest Development Commission. There will be no Central Development Commission. There will be South.
So every region would soon have a development commission.
Then what are the states there for?
Okay, so Madam Nuruddin, what do you think that we should be pushing for? The MPC, of course, made a statement about productivity, and it came almost the same time where Labour was in negotiation. And Labour has attributed a statement to be like a diversion of the attention of what is on ground at the moment. Now, what should they be pushing for? I mean, the Trade Union Congress and, of course, NLC for Nigerian workers.
Do you know why even Nigerians don't take this labor union serious again?
Why?
Because apparently there is a lack of seriousness in their demands. Thank you. The NLC president, let's assume that he has a private firm where he employs workers. Will he just go packing everybody from the village and pack them there just to work, just to earn salary?
Of course not.
The same thing with the TUC guy. Government is a business. Let them be realistic. And government as well. I'm going to pay, let's say, 100K. But every ministry, every agency, go to the budget. I'm talking about the agencies that draw money from the federal corpus. There are more than 700 plus. We did a story some years back. Freshwater agency, warm water agency, cold water agency, mango, all manner of institutes. They have overstayed their usefulness. But the government is just keeping them, paying them, making the loan tape longer.
At a point, I heard some refinery workers were still drawing salaries from the federal government coffers, even though the refineries were not working. I read the story around the Kaduna refinery.
Of course, there are workers there. Even the Kuta still where it hasn't started working. Yeah, we have workers who are being paid salaries.
And they retire. And they are even collecting pension.
This now brings us to the issue of the KPIs you were talking about.
Exactly.
Just what I'm saying here is this. The government should be serious and realistic. And the labor as well. You are demanding 600. You understand? The government will not even take you serious. That's why, the government, they are politicians, they created so many diversionary 25% to 30% increment. They created one, what do they call it? Is it 35,000?
35.
They pay only once.
They've been doing a lot, but this doesn't change the fact that while civil servants continue to complain and Nigerians continue to complain that things are getting more difficult, there is still a possibility of things getting more difficult because, I mean, look at the front page of the Daily Trust.
Yes.
Insecurity is now the reason why food production has declined, so terribly in Nigeria. And the riders there were seriously affected. Farmers, of course, production costs also a factor. Agro rangers would soon be deployed. That's according to the federal government. So we've been getting a lot of soons, but the question is when.
Issue is this. Let's go back to the Orosanye report, the original report. When Orosanye report submitted his report to Jonathan, he mentioned the ministries and even the modalities of edging out majority of these civil servants. Some of them training them for a month, 2 or 3 on certain skills, on certain value chain in the farming sector, and they will be given money.
Incentives.
You understand? We have to go back to that report. We have to update it. And, people talk about, people losing their jobs. No. There are so many safety valves in that report. I have that the main report, you understand. How, talking about cadre by cadre, if we do that, coupled with tackle insecurity, whatever, the president should forget about it. The dollar has dropped down. Borders have been opened. The prices of food still skyrocketing. Why? The local production we have been making, is equally becoming impossible because of what you said. So we have to invest in security. And even the security people, like I normally say, give these generals, police chiefs and what have you, targets. They should have their own KPI. If they fail, fire them and hire others.
Well, Nuruddin is in his element again. It's always lovely having him on Friday to do the review of the papers because one would expect that really frank conversations and submissions from Madam Nuruddin. Unfortunately, this is where we have to draw the curtain on the program. It's been 2 hours of insights, 2 hours of information, 2 hours of enlightenment from you, our viewers who called in during the Daybreak Interactive segment, to give your comments, contributions to the federal government's plan to touch the pensions fund that is 20 trillion naira large. However, that's the much we can take on the program. Thank you so much for staying with us from 8 a.m. till now. Until next week, my name is Sagir Ibrahim. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
My name is Mardia Umar. Thank you for being with us up until this time. Have a wonderful weekend. But stay tuned to Trust Television.